This is big breaking news. An emergency situation is going on right now in Washington, D.C., and we are getting shocking revelations of what actually happened. And President Trump just signed an executive order as well too. Very important, and these are related. So let's get into all the details here. You guys can see two National Guard members are fighting for their life right now, and it's being investigated as a possible act of terrorism. We're going to get into all the details of that. And we also have President Trump signing an executive order. You can see here Trump signs executive order targeting certain Muslim Brotherhood chapters as terror groups. Okay, so Trump signed this on Monday. And then 2 days later, we have this incident, and we are being told that this attack, we will get into more details of that executive order, but this attack happened on two National Guard members right outside of the White House from a Afghan national. Okay, you can see here, it says a 29-year-old man whose last known location was in Bellingham, Washington, has been identified as a suspect in today's incident, four senior law enforcement sources told NBC News. His name is Ra Manula Lockenwall and has been identified as a suspect, said four senior law enforcement sources. It says here, police have said the National Guard members were on patrol when a person came around the corner, raised a firearm, and fired upon them. The two National Guard members are in critical condition. That's what officials say. And the suspect was also hit as well too. So the story that I'm seeing behind the scenes is that they were walking and they were unarmed, and this guy came from around the corner, fired upon them, and from the pictures that I'm seeing that are pretty bad, and I don't want to show them on here because it's sad and these people have families and I don't want to show that, but it looked like they were hit in the head. Okay, and the West Virginia governor did report that they possibly passed away, but he came back and said that's not confirmed and they are still fighting for their life. All right, so that's what's going on right now. It's being reported that this man was a Afghan national who was brought in under a program in the U.S. called Operation Allies Welcome, which is a program created to resettle Afghans after the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. So do you remember during the Biden administration, there was this big withdrawal of the U.S. military, and there was this program that was set up in the aftermath of this to allow lots of people to enter the country from Afghanistan, and he entered the country through this program. That is what's being reported, and it's being investigated as a potential act of terror. You can see here officials said the suspect, who is alleged to have used a handgun, has been initially identified as an Afghan national. Law enforcement officials are still trying to confirm all of the person's details, they said. A motive has not been determined and the nature of the investigation could change. There's some information that's not confirmed that I'm hearing behind the scenes that I'll share with you guys in just a second. And it also says both guard members were hit in the head. This is what sources are reporting, okay? And President Trump just signed an executive order designating multiple chapters of the Muslim Brotherhood as a, quote, terror group. All right, and this is not confirmed, but this is what sources are saying behind the scene. It's saying law enforcement sources in D.C. are saying the National Guardsman's suspect who attacked them used a revolver. And it says the National Guardsmen were not armed. I'm not sure why they were not armed with not even a sidearm or anything like that, but tragically it's being reported they were unarmed and both hit in the head. And it's saying another guardsman responded with gunfire and hit the suspect multiple times. And the suspect allegedly shouted, quote, "Allah Akbar." All right, that's what law enforcement sources in DC are saying as well too. That is not confirmed at this moment, but I just thought that was interesting information. All right, and they're saying that this was a, quote, targeted attack targeting these National Guard members. All right, so very concerning. In response, we have the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth. He is saying that hundreds of National Guardsmen are now going to be flooded to the streets of Washington, D.C. in response. Let's listen to this. And this kind of honestly just confirms the initial worry about crime and the situation in these cities. I mean, this kind of, reiterates that something's going on in a lot of these big cities and they're not safe. And even the National Guardsmen are not safe just walking around. So this kind of proves the point that maybe we do need more National Guardsmen, but it's also like we are getting to this point where what comes next? I mean, are we just going to have martial law at this point? Because what happens if more and more of these people that have bad intentions start doing more attacks like this? All right. And there's been close to 10 million people that came into the country over the past 4 years, and a lot of them were not vetted properly, and a lot of them do have connections to even these terror groups and things like that in these other countries, and then they sometimes slip through the cracks and get into the United States. And this was through a legal program that was set up by the Biden administration to resettle Afghan nationals. And it's also being reported as well too from Newsmax. This isn't confirmed though, that this guy was potentially connected to the Afghanistan military and potentially was a translator or something along those lines, where he worked in coordination with the U.S. military and the Afghanistan military when it was still a thing before they left and it collapsed and it was handed over to these Islamic groups like the Taliban is the main one that took over. So that's not confirmed, but that's, kind of word on the street is that he was also some type of like interpreter, possibly some type of role where he was working with, and that's how he got this status where he can be a part of this program. It's called Operation Allies Welcome, and he probably got priority status, if he was part of the Afghan military and an interpreter, something along those lines. All right, so that's not confirmed, but that is what some news sources are speculating. Let's listen to Pete Hegseth really quick.
Very productive meetings, but I want to start by saying after those meetings, myself and my team were notified that 2 National Guardsmen have been shot in Washington, D.C., critically wounded. The shooter shot in a cowardly, dastardly act targeting the best of America, heroes willing to serve in Washington, D.C., serve for people they don't know and they've never met because they love their country and their capital and their community. They were willing to do dangerous things others were not because they love their fellow Americans. Someone decided to turn that into targeting National Guardsmen. That will only stiffen our resolve. We will never back down. We will secure our capital. We will secure our cities. In fact, this happened just steps away from the White House. It will not stand. And that's why President Trump has asked me, and I will ask the Secretary of the Army to the National Guard, to add 500 additional troops, National Guardsmen, to Washington, D.C. This will only stiffen our resolve to ensure that we make Washington, D.C. safe and beautiful. The drop in crime has been historic. The increase in safety and security has been historic. But if criminals want to conduct things like this, violence against America's best, we will never back down. President Trump will never back down. That's why the American people elected him. America and our warriors, our National Guardsmen, are strong. And so we're following this very closely. We're getting information rapidly. I mentioned the faith of this country, the Christian faith, the prayers. I would ask for prayers for our National Guardsmen.
Excuse me, Mr.
Appeals to heaven for our National Guardsmen, for their families, on bended knee as a War Department, as a nation.
Excuse me.
We will never back down.
Excuse
Nobody think about them right now.
Venezuela.
We had a couple of great, productive meetings with the President and Minister of Defense here, where we are.
So he's saying 500 National Guardsmen are going to be deployed to Washington, D.C., and it's probably necessary at this point because there might be copycats. This might, trigger something even bigger where people want to do this more. Who knows? Do you think this was like retaliation potentially for Trump's executive order? I don't know for certain, but maybe it was retaliation. You can see here President Trump signed an executive order Monday directing Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent to begin designating certain chapters of the Muslim Brotherhood as a foreign terror organization and specially designated global terror. It says the order invoking the Immigration and Nationality Act and the International Emergency Economic Powers cites the group's involvement in violence across the Middle East, including rocket attacks on Israel following October 7, 2023. The move begins a 30-day review led by the State and Treasury Departments to identify Brotherhood chapters in Egypt, Jordan, and Lebanon for possible designation, which could freeze assets, restrict travel, and criminalize material support for affiliated entities. All right, so I'm not saying anything is confirmed. I just thought it was kind of crazy timing that, 2 days ago, Trump signs this order, and then there's this attack on National Guardsmen. And what was this guy really doing? He was right next to the White House. Where was he really going? What would he have done if he didn't run into these troops? Was he just trying to target National Guardsmen, or was he trying to get to the White House? All right, that's something that we need to figure out as well, too, because they're saying that he's not cooperating. They don't technically know a motive. I think we kind of have an idea of what the motive is, but not, explicitly, told us exactly what's going on. But maybe he was going for Trump. Maybe he was trying to go to the White House and do something as well, too. Who knows what's going on? But I don't even understand why troops are on patrol. It was saying they were, quote, on patrol, walking around. Why are they on patrol and they're not even armed? You're kind of just setting them up. At that point, you're just putting a uniform on them and telling, hey, everyone, here's a target, a soft target. All right, you wouldn't send police officers out there to go on, quote, patrol without their firearm. So why would you send National Guardsmen troops to do this? It doesn't really make sense. And this is kind of the consequence. It's very sad and concerning where our country could be going. All right. You can see here it says it was founded in Egypt in 1928 and is developed into a transnational network with chapters across the Middle East and beyond. Trump's executive order reads, relevant here is chapters in Lebanon, Jordan, and Egypt engage in or facilitate and support violence destabilization campaigns that harm their own regions, United States citizens, and United States interests. All right, so I don't know. I think this is going to turn into a bigger issue. I'm worried that over the past 4 years, potentially, there could have been a lot of people that slipped through the cracks that should have been vetted more properly. All right. Let's get an update here. It says a new update. It says here, West Virginia Governor Patrick Morrisey said tonight that he has spoken with President Donald Trump following today's incident of 2 National Guard members from his state. Quote, I know the president, who I just spoke to, stands behind these courageous service members and our state to get through this really difficult time, Morrisey said in a video posted on X around 7:30 p.m. Morrisey called the incident in D.C., where members of his state's National Guard have been deployed, an act of unspeakable violence. Quote, 2 West Virginia National Guardsmen were brazenly hit in Washington, D.C. This is an act of unspeakable violence. Quote, our hearts and our thoughts, our prayers go out to the brave service members, their families, and the units who are enduring this terrible tragedy. Yeah, I mean, pray for these soldiers. We're not sure their condition. It's being reported that it was reported by the governor that they passed away, but he then retracted the statement and said he's not sure of their exact condition. You can also see here President Trump said, quote, the animal that hit the 2 National Guardsmen, with both being critically wounded and now in 2 separate hospitals, is also severely wounded, but regardless will pay a very steep price. God bless our great National Guard and all of our military and law enforcement. These are truly great people. I, as President of the United States, and everyone associated with the office of the presidency, am with you. So that's what President Trump said, responding to this situation here. All right, and here's a video I wanted to show you guys too on this organization called the Muslim Brotherhood. They're saying that they are embedding themselves in U.S. government agencies. Let's listen to this really quick.
So a new report detailing one Islamic group's decades-long reach into the U.S. The report claims the Muslim Brotherhood shares ideological goals with Muslim extremist organizations and aims to influence and infiltrate U.S. government, educational systems, civil rights groups. Dr. Kanta Ahmed is a senior fellow at the Independent Women's Forum and a member of the Council on Foreign Relations and joins us now. Knows, I would say, as much about the Middle East as anyone in America today. Doctor, your thoughts about the role of the Muslim Brotherhood and what they're up to here?
Well, this is something we've been recommending. Over 10 years ago, I wrote an article to say that the Muslim Brotherhood should be designated a foreign terror organization. This report by the Institute Studying Global Anti-Semitism and Policy shows the Muslim Brotherhood is influencing at the executive branch, it's influencing policymakers, it's reframing the argument. Post 9/11, there was Islamophobia, then came boycott, divestment, sanctions, demonizing Israel, and now we've just seen the pro-Hamas protests. That is all part of their multi-generational project to have a war against the secular and undermine our democracy using our democratic freedoms.
And one way that the protest on college campuses, and we see what's happening with our educational institutions, CARE. It's an acronym. What should we know about that organization?
Council on American Islamic Relations. This is part of the other organizations Senator Ted Cruz and Governor Abbott in Texas are designating as criminal transnational networks. It portrays itself to be advocating for Muslims like me, but actually it's advancing an Islamist project. What CARE did in California that's under investigation, they took money purportedly for Afghan refugees, helped less than 200, took half of that $7 million and put it back in their own organization. They're disclosing only small fractions of their lobbying, which they're then using to finance and support radicals on campus. So they are subverting our academic institutions in line with their Islamist goals.
So now that we recognize it, in fact, the Governor Abbott put this out yesterday, and here's a little of his missive. The Muslim Brotherhood and CARE have long made their goals clear: to forcibly impose Sharia law and establish Islam's mastership of the world. We hear that it's in parts of Michigan and also parts of Texas. Are they taking over small towns and putting these laws into effect?
So I would say their mission is to advance Islamism. They're doing that in many ways, but we're not the only nation that's seeing this. France published an incendiary report on the Muslim Brotherhood. They're using hundreds of nonprofits, charities, student groups, professional societies, undermining local government, putting in politicians that are sympathetic to their views or openly acolytes, and modifying and changing our democracy. That's happening here in the United States too. And while CARE was being investigated in California, it's still receiving federal funds.
Which is crazy. And by the way, here's their response. Got to be fair. They say this, does CARE, Greg Abbott's disregard for the First Amendment, his obsession with Texas Muslims, his dedication to protecting the Israeli government from criticism apparently knows no bounds. CARE Texas plans to continue vigorously to defend the Texas Muslim community from this governor's increasingly desperate, deranged attempts to shred the First Amendment. So that's their response. But I'm tired of hearing about, I have 3 pages of investigations. We don't do anything. We investigate. Why are they still getting money? Why are we pretending that this is an organization that seeks good, that has good intentions?
So Senator Ted Cruz's efforts should be hugely commended, and they're a blueprint for other states. Once these organizations are designated as potential FTOs or criminal networks, the finances can be opened. If they sue in retaliation, that will result in discovery, and you'll be able to see what's going on. So this is the first step. The second is that response you just read is typical. They're claiming religious advocacy, exploiting religious freedom and anti-discrimination laws while they subvert our democratic process. It's time to elevate reasoned, credible Muslim voices and learn from Saudi Arabia, Egypt, United Arab Emirates, France, those Arab countries have designated this group as a terror group. Austria has done so, and we are about to see a lot of Western Europe do the same.
And Democrats should get behind this. This is not a Democrat-Republican issue. This is an American issue. Doctor, thanks so much.
All right, so you heard that there. I thought something interesting she said too. She was talking about how they are funneling money through these different countries. All right, so she was talking about Afghanistan specifically, how there was aid money going there, and then it was funneling back to the United States to fund domestic groups here that were, building and embedding and protesting and doing things like that. So, and it's all U.S. taxpayer money. It's like U.S. aid money. I don't know if that's what it is exactly, but that's probably what it was. All right, it's this weird scam how the U.S. taxpayer funds all these things. All right, and what do we get out of it? What are we really getting out of funding these? And this happens with all these different countries where we give them aid. It's corrupt, most of them. I don't know the exact percentage, but it seems like most of them are corrupt, and they're just kind of like stealing the money. And then a lot of the time even using it against us, using it against the United States and our best interest to hurt the U.S. All right, so it's our own tax dollars funding a lot of this stuff too, and that's just a scratch of the surface, I believe. I think that's just the beginning. And it's a real shame that Doge has really slowed down and hasn't been, working on all this stuff. Maybe they are behind the scenes, but there are reports, that it has slowed down. They said they haven't shut down, all right? That was debunked apparently, that they didn't actually shut down, but they've definitely slowed down. And it's kind of a shame because it was interesting, and it was good to see them investigate where these funds were going overseas to these sketchy groups so we can stop it, because nobody really knows what's going on behind the scenes, where all this money is going. So let me know what you guys think down below. I hope you guys are staying safe, staying prepared, staying stocked up, staying ready just in case. Keep your head on a swivel. This holiday season, I'm a little, just a little worried I don't want to say scared or anything like that. Don't be scared. Be prepared. Be preemptive. Be ready. But I'm honestly, I'm a little concerned this holiday season that there could be more of this stuff. I mean, this is the day before Thanksgiving. So, hope you guys have a good Thanksgiving, a blessed Thanksgiving, a safe Thanksgiving. And just, watch out for yourself if you're going to like any parades or doing any public events or anything like that. I'm just a little concerned that this holiday season we could see a few more of these incidences, at Christmas events, things like that. So let me know what you guys think down below. Hope you guys are staying safe, staying prepared, staying stocked up, and I hope you have a big old blessed day.